Welcome to Barnstable Today. I'm Nick Cortez. We're continuing our week-long look back at Thursday's Town Council meeting held at Barnstable High School's Knight Auditorium. As you know by now, the council spent most of the meeting listening to dozens of residents react to the 6-5 vote cast in late June to offer town manager John Klim a contract buyout. So far this week, we've shown you a sampling of those comments, almost all of which were squarely in support of the manager. We've also taken a look at the council's response to public comment, where councilors presented very different interpretations of what precipitated the buyout offer, depending on which side of the vote they fell. But today, Manager Klim speaks for himself. After the councilors finished their remarks, Council President Fred Chirigotis offered Klim the opportunity to share his own thoughts on the past several months leading up to the buyout vote. What followed was a candid and emotional speech, which we'll play for you in its entirety right now.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, through you to the council. I wanted to take this opportunity to say a few words about tonight's meeting and about the past several months. But I don't want to speak tonight to the council. I want to speak to you, the citizens of Barnstable. I will not get in a debate or a fight or an argument tonight, but I do call into question some of the so-called facts that were presented. But this is really not what is important here. The future of this community is what is really important here. The last 6 months in many ways has been both the best of times and the worst of times for me. Unfortunately, we have witnessed a council increasingly contentious, polarized, and divisive. A council fighting and attacking instead of collaborating and succeeding. A council whose politics has gotten way too personal. I served on Beacon Hill for 8 years, and the politics there could not hold a candle to the politics of personal attack that I've witnessed in this town over the past several months. And through it all, we have a council president who has refused to lower himself to the mudslinging attacks that have occurred. And if nothing else happens this evening, Mr. President, I want to tell you that it has been an honor and a pleasure to serve with you and to call you a friend. I was informed many months ago that at least 6 councilors want me out. 6 months of threats, intimidation, and heavy-handedness, never with one scintilla of rationale for that action. They want me out. And in all of this, I began to really dislike this community, the very community that I was born and raised in, the town that both my mother and father proudly worked for, the community that I have called home for 55 years, and the community that Dolores and I plan to live out our lives in. Yes, I did. I started disliking the very community that I loved my whole life. And then several weeks ago, the council did it. They moved to push me out. And then a funny thing happened. You finally had a chance to have your say. The hundreds of calls, emails, letters, and well wishes from all of you have been simply overwhelming. The kindest and most thoughtful acts by so many of you. A note from a young couple just leaving on their honeymoon, stopping just a moment to say that they were thinking of me. An email from a widow who just laid her spouse to rest less than a month ago. And incredibly, a note from a longtime resident who was on her way to hospice. How could people be so thoughtful and kind? I have asked my wife 1,000 times over the past few weeks, how could people be so thoughtful? What does that extraordinary, or where does that extraordinary kindness come from? It comes from you, a caring and wonderful community. It comes from Barnstable, Massachusetts. The problem, ladies and gentlemen, is that I am not by nature a negative person. I don't like the poison politics of personal attack. I don't like seeing a community bleeding the blood of destruction. For 12 years, we have believed, as Ralph Cahoon reminds us, that Barnstable deserves better. And Barnstable is better than what we have witnessed recently. For 12 years, an incredible town staff with a group of terrific volunteers grew stronger and better and more committed. When the pundits said that we could not improve our financial position because of the seasonality of the economy, we said, we are Barnstable. Wonder what those experts are saying now, Mark Milne, with our AAA bond rating. When the naysayers said that the schools in town would never get along, we said, you're wrong. We are now a model of collaboration and cooperation, having consolidated finance and human resource functions with the closest working relationship in the state. When the business pundits told us that we could not succeed in downtown revitalization, especially during the worst economic recession in decades, we said, you're wrong. After 6 years and $50 million in new investment, what are they saying now? And when the skeptics said we would never expand the senior center, and after 20 years of talk, never build that Hyannis Youth and Community Center, we said, you are wrong. Just ask Gary Blazes, who spearheaded the effort, and he was here right in the front row. What are those folks saying now, Gary? And when the pundits said that we could never get our citizens re-engaged in local government again, we said, you're wrong about that too. Go ask the 550 graduates of our Leadership Academy and the 700 graduates of the Police Academy, and the hundreds of wonderful town volunteers on committees, and the thousands receiving our newsletters and bulletins. Go try to tell them that they are not interested in our community. This is your community, ladies and gentlemen, and you get to decide what direction we will take in the future. You get to decide if we are a community of reason and hope or a community of destruction and negativity. You get to decide. On behalf of my wife and family, I thank each of you for your kind thoughts and prayers. I thank you for caring, and most of all, I thank you for believing that Barnstable does deserve better. Thank you.
In total, nearly 3 hours of last week's meeting were spent on the topic of the town manager's contract. But after that, an important vote was cast that will pave the way for one of the largest ground-mounted solar panel installations in New England to be built right here in Barnstable. And we'll get to that tomorrow, right here on Barnstable Today. For now, though, we'll leave you with a look at this week's remaining meetings. I'm Nick Cortez, and we'll see you next time.